Welcome to Open Minds. I'm your host, Christopher Balkrin. If you want honest and genuine conversations on the world's biggest topics, let me know. Hit that like button, definitely subscribe, and let me know what you want to see in the comment section below. Airbnb, it's this massive global corporation. Here in Canada, the government is looking to regulate it even further than it already is. And perhaps the reason why is because the government believes by regulating it, they will allow more housing into the market here in Canada when we're currently facing a massive housing shortage. The Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation put out a report showing that we need as a country 3.5 million homes by 2030. 2030 is 6 years away. And we need to somehow build 3.5 million homes. I have no idea how we're going to do that, but that is the precursor, perhaps, to why the government sees the need to regulate Airbnb. So here in the city of Toronto, if you want to Airbnb, it can only be on your primary residence, and it can only be done for 6 months of the year. That's basically the rule here in the city of Toronto. Every city has different rules. But in a city where rents are going up by double digits year over year, those are pretty strict rules when it comes to Airbnb. I don't know how many Airbnbs there are currently in the city, but I can imagine it's not many as a result of those rules. Now, I'm sure some people are, lying and cheating and scamming, of course. But if you were to do it by the books, it is very, very restrictive to do Airbnb in the city of Toronto. But that doesn't stop the government. You see, in the government's federal economic statement, fall economic statement, there we go, the government actually is cracking down on Airbnb. And Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland's word says, we will be cracking down on short-term rentals listed on sites like Airbnb and Vrbo, which are keeping far too many homes off the market in communities and cities right across the country. Those are Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland's words. I don't know how many Airbnbs there are across the country. Some say there's only 30,000 Airbnbs that are currently being used full-time Airbnb as Airbnb income. That's across the country. So it's not that many. And remember, we have to hit that 3.5 million home number in 6 years. So I don't understand why this is such a big deal in the fall economic statement. 30,000 homes, roughly, if we assume them to be full-time Airbnbs, that doesn't make sense. But the government, starting January 1st, 2024, is limiting income tax deductions for short-term rentals provided by services like Airbnb and Vrbo. So if you are an Airbnb host, you cannot put a series of income tax deductions as a result of you hosting or being a host on Airbnb. Now, a lot of people might not think of this as a big deal. It is a ton of work to Airbnb your home. Think about this. You have to make sure that your home is Airbnb ready, meaning that your fridge has to be immaculate. Your freezer has to be immaculate. Your entire living quarters need to be in pristine condition all of the time, so that if you get a booking for the weekend ahead, you can easily pick up and go, let your cleaners come in, finish the job off, so that when people come over, it looks like a hotel. And then when they leave, they know that they left a home/hotel. To do that on a regular basis is a ton of work. So much work. There's so much work involved in that. So when you think about what you charge as an Airbnb host every single night, by the time you think of cleaning expenses and making sure there's fresh linens and everything else, you're really not making that much money. It's not nearly as lucrative as people assume it to be. And let me just tell everyone, it is so hard to maintain your superhost status. You have to basically be getting 5-star reviews every single time someone comes into your place. And if they don't give you a 5-star review, if they give you, let's say, 3 stars or 4 stars, or they notice something's out of place, you can lose your superhost status very quickly. And what does that mean? Well, it means that you're no longer as visible on their main page. Your listing gets bumped down. It's just not you won't be able to book your home as easily as you were before. So every aspect, every inch of your space has to be really thought through for people to feel comfortable leaving you a 5-star review. That is so much work. It's not to be believed. Again, a lot of work goes into maintaining superhost status on Airbnb, where your listing is top of mind and on the front page, basically, for the city in which you're in. And your nightly charge has to be relatively competitive. Otherwise, people won't book. But that nightly charge varies season to season. Summer times are usually more busier and you can charge a little bit more, especially around events. But then there's winter where people aren't really coming as much and you will have to basically run it at a loss. And one of the greatest benefits of this is the write-offs come tax time. You can write off cleaning expenses and your mortgage interest and a host of other expenses in running your Airbnb. But starting January 1st, 2024, all of that ends. The government is closing down income tax deductions for Airbnb hosts. Again, if we assume that the total number of Airbnbs across Canada are in the tens of thousands, or we can even bump that up to hundreds of thousands, it's still a drop in the bucket to the 3.5 million homes we need by 2030, which is in 6 years. So it's very odd that the government's coming after Airbnb, or so I thought. But the more I looked into it, I realized that there is one association, the Hotel Association of Canada. And back in 2017, they released this report comparing Airbnbs and hotels, and I found this really interesting in the report. I'll leave a link below. Hotels support many jobs, including but not necessarily limited to positions in management, HR, front desk, etc. The hoteling industry directly supports approximately 192,000 full-time equivalent jobs at an average salary of $36,000 within Canada's 11 markets. The sector employs an estimated 76,000 full-time equivalent positions at an average annual salary of $52,000. So the Hotel Association of Canada, in its report comparing Airbnbs to the hoteling industry, points out the fact that hotels support jobs, and governments around the world are absolutely concerned about jobs. And so the government should be as well. And what I also found interesting is if you go on the Government of Canada's website and you look up who has been the Hotel Association of Canada's lobbying efforts, you find that in the past year, they've met with the Government of Canada a total of 11 times, at least what's available, lobbying the government on a series of issues. Now, when you click on any of these, you will find just a couple sentences on what these meetings were about, but generally it was about informing officials of the unique impacts on the hospitality sector, advocating for government supports to increase tourism's potential to drive economic growth and job creation in all regions. So we can see that the Hotel Association of Canada has a vested interest in protecting the hoteling space. And if they've put out a report about the impact of Airbnbs, it stands to reason this could be one of the issues that the Hotel Association of Canada has put forward in the past. I know that's quite the stretch because the hoteling sector has a whole host of other issues, but I also think that Airbnb does pose a threat to the hospitality, at least in some people's minds. There are areas of the city of Toronto and other areas of our country where there are just not enough hotels. And I get that. It's capital intensive to build a hotel. You have to look at occupancy, how frequently it's going to be rented out. Are you going to turn a profit? What's that profit going to be like? It's a whole thing to invest in a hotel. There's so many steps and factors to be considered before investors and companies make that decision to invest in a hotel in any city across Canada, the United States, etc. But for Airbnb, if you have a home in an underserved area, you can throw it up on Airbnb and Vrbo and start making money. So that's where I understand why the hoteling industry may feel a bit threatened, because a lot of the revenue that's being generated by Airbnb hosts could and would have been generated by the hoteling industry if they were more properly serving areas. The other consideration to this is that perhaps in like cottage country, maybe there are regulations against massive hotel chains from going up there, right? So the hoteling industry is finding it difficult to break into some areas of the country because of that. And that's where an Airbnb or Vrbo makes a lot more sense, especially if it's your cottage and there are more generous rules around short-term rentals than there are in the city of Toronto. So those are some contextual pieces. Those are some initial thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I think this is an interesting time where we are seeing this almost obsession of regulating Airbnb by the federal government of Canada. But when you unwind it a little bit more and understand the hospitality sector and the hoteling industry as a whole, you can start piecing together why the hoteling industry in particular feels threatened by Airbnb hosts. That's what I got for you today. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And if you're really liking this content, check out this video right here.